What's going on, guys? Starting up this week of the off season with some Buffalo bar squats. Worked up 4 sets of 6 with 512 pounds. Then followed it up with some tempo squats and some sumo pause moves. Those are gonna be my accessories for this next 3 weeks of training. So those are kind of all precursors leading into meet prep. One builds off of the other, going into competition lifts. Doing the Buffalo bar after the safety squat bar because it'll help me transition into the low bar a little bit more seamlessly. It gives me time to work on more shoulder mobility, making sure that everything's healthy so I can go to low bar without any issues. Tempo squats I always like to throw in, especially with the higher rep stuff. Can cause a little bit of fatigue. When you're fatiguing and you're lifting, your form can go to shit sometimes. So just to build in some technical work, doing the tempos to make sure that technique is still solid and sound is a good follow-up exercise when you're doing a high volume block. And then the pause deads, they're just better for me in general because I don't necessarily get into the best starting position. So what I'm trying to do is just trying to be a little bit more patient in my start position and then pull with a little bit more patience. So adding the pause in there kind of deliberately slows you down. Now if you're a good puller, I don't really like doing pauses just because I feel like it'll help you technically, but if you're already technically a good puller, I feel like it teaches you to kind of slow down your pull, which you don't want to do to begin with, especially if you're already technically sound. So you want to make sure you pick exercises that kind of fit the criteria, why you're doing them, what you need to be done. Don't just do stuff because you see other people doing it. Make sure you know why. Make sure you know how to execute it, and make sure that you're doing everything to your best ability with a purpose. That's the whole thing about training, is to find a purpose, deliver on it, and get better and compete and rinse and repeat. And it's just a long journey that people need to be patient with. And I kind of liken that to watching the Olympics right now. I'm sure a lot of people are watching the Olympics, and it's really cool to see these athletes train for 4 years. Pretty much they're all training their whole life, but in the scope of things, they train in 4-year blocks to get ready for maybe 1 to 2 to 3 events or matches. Whether it be the archery people, whether it be the rifle people, or the women's soccer teams, or the gymnasts. You gotta admire that level of dedication. I can't even get my diet clients to follow a plan for weeks sometimes without them freaking out and not being able to stick to it and telling me that it's the hardest thing that they've ever done. Or have somebody training through a volume phase and not have them bitch about, just too much work, I can't get it all done. And when they first sign up, they have this questionnaire that they fill out. They have their goals in there, and in the back of my mind, I think, man, maybe your goals are just a little bit more than what you're capable of actually putting out there. Maybe you should reevaluate your goals. If you want to be the best at something, you got to have that kind of workman's mentality. You can't just expect things to just come to you and be handed to you with this huge sense of entitlement that this generation has. It's one of those things where if your goal is to be great, you got to put in a lot of work. And not just a lot of work for one training cycle, you got to put in a lot of work, for a decade. Then you can talk to me about, how much time it takes, and all this other stuff. And these people, they put in all this work to compete one time out of the year, to be relevant one time out of the year, right? People think powerlifting's irrelevant. Olympic sports are extremely irrelevant until the Olympics come around. And even then, they don't get paid to do the stuff that they do. They're not pro athletes getting paid millions of dollars. They're doing it because it's what they're good at, it's what they love to do, and it's what they're passionate about. And they don't really care about how much money they make. Granted, they should make a lot more, right? they're competing for our country. So obviously, the reason why U.S. lacks in some of the categories is because they don't have the type of encouragement or commitment that other countries have. With more of the fringe sports, but we tend to do well with more of the popular sports. And they should definitely get paid more, but that doesn't stop these people from doing what they have to do to become the best at what some may consider like insignificant sports. People think table tennis could be ridiculous, but I guarantee you those table tennis players are practicing for hours upon hours upon hours. And they're putting in the work to be great because that's what they made up in their mind to do, and that's what they're going to do. It doesn't matter what other people think about it. It doesn't matter what other people say about it. They're going to stick to their goals. They're not going to complain, and they're going to train their asses out. And until you can kind of develop that mindset and put yourself in their shoes and figure out, what is it that separates these people from myself? What is it that separates the best in my sport from me, the mediocre person? Do I just want to be good? Do I have goals that say to be great, but I can't quite pull them off because I'm just not really committed to it? Or if I don't get my goal in a year, do I just quit because it's a little bit harder than I thought it was? Those are a lot of things you gotta ask yourself, and those are sometimes questions that you're not gonna have the answer to until it happens. But I tell people all the time, if you're not training, if you're not competing for a deeper reason than for recognition or money, then you're gonna be washed out and washed up really, really soon because there's not a lot of recognition in the sport. There's not a lot of money in the sport, if any. It's a fringe sport that is getting more popular, but you better do it because you love to do it, because it's going to take you at least 8 to 10 years of solid training to be one of the top people. If you're not willing to put that work in, you're going to get passed by so many people that are willing to put that work in. So watch the Olympics, see how hard these people work, see how hard they're training for 1 or 2 events. Even when they come in 8th place, they're excited because they took off 2 seconds. They trained 4 years and took off 2 seconds for their time. They trained 4 years, to be able to shoot an arrow, a centimeter straighter. So really evaluate your goals. Keep watching the Olympics. Cheer for America. Cheer for USA. Thanks for watching this video, guys. Until next time. Take care.